Welcome to the channel tribe. In this session of virtual meetup, we are having Mohammed Aqeel Ahmed, who is Senior Security Engineer at ServiceNow, discussing on getting started with application security.
So we have with us Mohammed Ahmed Aqeel, and he is a Senior Security Engineer at ServiceNow, and he would be starting with his session, getting introduced to application security.
Hey, hello everyone. Good morning. Thank you, Mati. So, are you guys able to see my screen? All right. Yeah. So, my name is Mohammed Aqeel Ahmed, but on the cyberspace, my username handle is CypherRoot. Currently, I'm leading a security team at ServiceNow, and these are some of the certifications that I hold. This is Offensive Security Certified Professional. This is Certified Information Systems Auditor, and this is Information Systems Manager, and this is Certified Ethical Hacker. And I hold master's degree from JNTU, and I usually speak at security conferences and some of the Hyderabad chapters that we have for security community. Occasionally, I participate in bug bounty programs. We'll speak more on bug bounties in the slides. If you want to connect with me or read about my blogs or anything, just Google it, CypherRoot, you'll come across some of the links. For today's agenda, these are some of the things that I thought would be helpful for this audience. May I know how many of you are already aware of security testing or know some bits and pieces, or people who are completely new to this? Any comments on getting started? Yeah, so that I can keep my talk to that level. Yeah, so.
Hi, Aqeel. Can you turn on your camera? I think we would like to see you while you're giving your presentation.
Actually, I just woke up and I don't
Okay.
think I'm ready to open my camera.
Okay, no.
Yeah. Yeah, so first of all, I'll give some idea on the AppSec and what are the statistics, what's the market, and where are the problems, misconceptions about the security. And then I'll take you through the information security introduction, and then we'll talk about the characteristics involved. Basically, we have the CIA triad, completely the security revolves around the CIA triad, and then I'll touch upon application security versus quality assurance, and then what are the benefits that we get out of security testing, and I'll also talk about the methodology that we follow, and then we have something called OWASP. Uh, I'll come to that, and then I'll try to demo one or two maybe exploits in the wild. I'll show some of the websites and how attackers can actually hack into your applications and then get hold of your network and other things. And then we'll have the QA. Right. So these are some of the statistics on the internet. These are the latest trends that's happening. And if you see, half of the internet facing applications are vulnerable to high risk severity vulnerabilities. So a lot of time whenever you find any vulnerability, there are some standards like CVSS calculator that we use to calculate the severity, and considering the risk involved, those vulnerabilities will be rated. And those will be like low, medium, high, and critical severity issues. And from the statistics, what we understand, web application vulnerabilities that are identified are mostly high risk vulnerabilities. And application security is something that's mostly attributed to the attackers. And if you see the stats, 83% of the applications have at least one security flaw in the initial scans itself. So when we look at the we'll get into the methodology, then we understand that initial scan is something where efforts are not much put into the scanning area, and initial scan will be like very low hanging fruits identification kind of thing. And when the organization sizes are big, if you see this, uh, organizations with more than 100 staff see more high and critical risk vulnerabilities. And if you see this stat, 20,000 times the average web application was attacked just in January and February of 2020. And a lot of times vulnerabilities are being reported, but still those are not fixed on time. There are various reasons for that. We'll come to that again. And it's good to know that people and organizations are understanding uh, the risk involved, and they are putting some efforts and they are putting some money in fixing those vulnerabilities. And if you see, Google has paid $35 million in bug bounties since 2010, and Microsoft alone has paid $14 million just in 1 year. And if you see the Facebook, it has awarded already 7,000 bounties since 2011. Bug bounties are something where companies invite ethical hackers all around the world, and if you identify any bug, companies will be awarding you. So, say you identified some vulnerability that has some risk, and you were able to get hold of some other users' data or company's data, then you report it ethically to the company instead of just selling it on the dark web. Company will award you something in reward. And from the data breaches of 2021, these are some of the stats that we see. Data breach is something where data is taken out from systems owner or company, and then it's actually sold somewhere else, or it's disclosed to the public. And these are some of the stats from 2021. There were around 1.5 million user records stolen from Kroger. Facebook 553 million records were stolen. LinkedIn 700 million. And Twitch, if you guys remember, there were big news on that. Twitch streamers' income was disclosed to the public, and a lot of them actually uh, verified that and said that those data breaches were actually not anything. So they were able to disclose this much information, and we see that companies are actually seeing the vulnerability trends in the wild. And if you see this graph, it shows that healthcare data breaches, if you see from 2009 to 2020, uh, in the latest record, we see that there were 642 incidents of data breaches just from the healthcare industry. And this news is from yesterday. In the US alone, there are like 700k positions that needs to be filled. So there is a huge gap between security engineers and the companies who actually wants to hire security engineers and uh, get hold of these things and fix all of their vulnerabilities on time. So why we are talking about these statistics is to understand the current market status in the security industry, and in general how the cyberspace is operating, uh, to get started and to proceed with the security testing area, right? Uh, so most of you are from the quality assurance background, and if we talk about the web application security misconceptions, uh, I spoke to many of the developers, network engineers, and operational teams. A lot of them don't even understand how the security of the applications actually work. Many of them feel that there are firewalls installed and they should be able to protect the applications, whatever they are deploying. But uh, yeah, so these are some of the misconceptions you see whenever you are visiting some website. You see there is a log pad, and this website is actually using HTTPS, and S stands for security in HTTPS. But that's not the only thing that's gonna secure your website. There are a lot of ways attackers actually get into the websites and they break your application. There are IDS and IPS systems which does its job, but won't be able to completely protect you from the attackers when it comes to the application security. Where is the problem? What's the root cause of it? So developers are not actually trained uh, to understand the security concepts. And if you see, network security actually cannot protect the web application layer. If you think about the OSI layer, there are 7 layers, out of which these firewalls, IDS, IPS, all these systems mostly protect you from network layer attacks. But when it comes to the application security, there are different tactics to fix those vulnerabilities. And generally, what happens, security flaws are discovered only at the later stage. So when the application is already built and it's already deployed on the production, and then you come for the security testing. And now when you understand there are some critical or high severity flaws out there, it's really costly for you to fix those vulnerabilities. And there is a really wide gap between analysts and the developers in the understanding of security concepts. I've just taken these quotes. So while speaking to a network professional, how he responds and how the developer responds. So if you see him, he says, I don't know how my company's web applications are supposed to work, so I deploy a protective solution, but don't know if it is protecting what it is supposed to do. This is the position of network security professionals who are good on the network and uh, are on the job of deploying the IDS and IPS systems. But they actually don't understand how exactly it's gonna protect the web applications. And application layer itself is a uh, great attack vector for any adversary to get into any organization. It is the first thing that an attacker will look at. And as a developer, uh, he says, I can build great features and functions, but I don't know how to develop my application with security as a feature. So these are some of the problems. So what is information security? Information security revolves around these three characteristics, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It protects your information from unauthorized adversaries, and it protects your system from unauthorized or accidental modification of your data. and as well as it protects you from any denial of service attacks. The goal is to ensure that your data or your intellectual property is secure enough. So confidentiality, it deals with the information, and it ensures that it's protecting your information from being disclosed to unauthorized parties. And integrity deals with the information, and it actually ensures that information is protected from unauthorized modifications. And availability ensures that whenever you need something, you need to access your application, you need to access your database systems, whatever systems you are dealing with, it's available for you. Nobody is actually doing the denial of service attacks on your intellectual property. So within information security, we have the application security area. I chose this topic because it's something where it's easier to get started in the security industry. You'll be able to understand a lot of concepts from whatever job currently you do. It's the easier thing to get you started in the information security, and it's a discipline that ensures that applications are actually following the security controls, and they are implementing the all the security controls, and they have the security policies. They follow coding best practices. So all of these things will be covered under application security, and it's used to minimize the security flaws on the application layer. And we have the security features and security controls such as authentication, encryption, authorization controls. Uh, we will have privilege escalation things, and we will have security policies. All of these things will be under application security. And why do we look at the application security? So we will have the accountability from the customers, business partners, governments. Consider an application where your application is actually kind of platform as a service, and you allow some other parties to build applications for your customers. In that scenario, who are responsible, who should be accountable for the security? There will be areas where you expect end users to take care of few things, and there will be areas where you will be accountable, and there will be areas where the partner you are dealing with is responsible for some of the security controls. And when we have this, we actually reduce the mitigation costs. We protect the reputation of the companies, and we uh, will be able to adapt to the compliances. These are the benefits that you see when now suppose you are implementing the application security program, then you will be able to uh, fix the vulnerabilities on the early stages itself. Now imagine you want to build something, you speak to one of the security engineers who is available, and he suggests you on the design level itself that how that application should be implemented. That way, it's really great for you to fix those vulnerabilities on the design phase itself. That way you reduce the risk of uh, reducing the costs and the risk of exposure to the data breaches. And you build the digital trust when you have an application security program implemented, and you'll be able to comply to multiple security compliances such as GDPR. GDPR actually deals with the data protection, and you will have less capital expenditures, and with that you will also have reduced time to market, and attack surface gets limited. You'll be able to focus on your business instead of getting diverted on the news of data breaches, and it also cut your costs in terms of fixing the vulnerabilities. So this is the basic difference. Bear with me, theory will be kind of boring, but we'll come to the actual hacking in some of these slides. Yeah, so when you're doing the manual testing, your perception is more as a end user, and you look at the application as if I click on this button, what it is supposed to be doing. If I look at some of the application areas, how it is actually meeting the user expectations. Is user is able to properly getting redirected to some of the other pages within the application when he's clicking on some of the links or something. So this is more of functional area. But hacker view, when you are doing the security testing, you will look at the application and think that uh, this is the application that is expecting some user inputs, and as a user you will only be able to put in your username, and then you test that if it is actually working or not. But as an as a security analyst, you'll also look at that input field by putting in some malicious characters in there, and see that if the application actually is broken, or if it behaves differently, or if you are able to do some malicious things when you are interacting with the application. Some of the examples I have, we'll see in the demos today. So in a nutshell, it's a type of security testing that uncovers your vulnerabilities. So you you follow some of the test cases, you look at the application, you try to uh, uh, run through all those tests and see if it discloses any of your information, or if you are able to break the application. So basically any system that's online, that's available for public, should be free from loopholes and weaknesses within the system. So during security testing, you identify those loopholes and get that fixed in the right time. So basically, there are three types of testing, and you do uh, these three things in automated way as well as manual way. There are two approaches, but if you look at the types, in the black box testing, what happens, you have no prior information of the target. You now suppose you want to target some company, and you don't have any information about that company, so that comes under black box testing. You'll be only given the target name. You have to do your OSINT, and you have to uh, get get their IP ranges and get their URLs and everything, and then you do the security testing and you attack the application from that perspective. In the white box testing, you are given uh, all the information about the target, such as you will be given the access to source code if it is application. If it is network pen test, that time you are given IP ranges uh, with the credentials that you can use to access their services, and you will have all the user accounts and everything when you are doing the white box testing. You can actually host the applications locally, and then uh, try the application, run the application, and then see how the application responds, and go to the code and see why it is that way this application works. In the gray box testing, tester is given partial information, such as target information will be given, or user accounts will be given, but not the actual code will be given. So these are the types of security testing that we do, and you must have heard about VAPT term. So this is these are relatively uh, comparable techniques. Vulnerability assessment is something where you identify vulnerabilities and you do some of the scannings out there, but you don't exploit the vulnerabilities. And penetration testing is similar to vulnerability assessment. The only difference is that once you identify any vulnerability, you are allowed to exploit that, and you have to act as an attacker, and you have to demonstrate what level of access you can have on the organization's data. So this is the main difference between VA and PT. This is the methodology that we generally follow. Information gathering, whenever whatever type of testing you are doing, such as you are doing mobile application testing, you are doing web application testing, you are doing network penetration testing, the first stage of security testing is information gathering. You gather all the information. Now let's take an example of application. You see what public information is available on Google. You try to see what users are posting about this organization. On LinkedIn, you'll check how many users are there. From those users, you'll be able to guess their usernames. You'll have the uh, jobs posted on LinkedIn, and from there you will see what kind of activities this organization is actually doing. And whatever public information you can gather, that happens in the information gathering phase. And then depending on the nature of application, you'll do all of your planning, what test cases you see as applicable, you plan it here in this phase. And you'll prepare the threat profile for the organization, and then you'll proceed with the actual vulnerability assessment. In the third phase, we actually run through some of the test cases. Now imagine there is a login page and you're not yet authenticated. So you think as an unauthenticated person and try to dig into the login page and see if you're able to bypass that. Imagine you directly force the browser URL to uh, suppose it's slash login dot php. Now you change that to home dot php or dashboard dot php, and the application actually takes you to that page, and you are able to force the browser, and there are no proper access controls implemented on the web pages. So that way, that is one kind of vulnerability that you see in this. On the same login page, you have two input fields, username and password. Now try to guess some of their usernames from the LinkedIn data that you have discovered in the first stage, and then follow through some of the data breaches. You have already available list of passwords that people generally use. Run through that and see if any of those passwords work. And there is a good website for checking the password strengths. Uh, there is a developer called Troy Hunt. He has implemented a service, Have I Been Pwned? If you go there, you'll be able to see your passwords, uh, how strong is your password, and if there are any breaches that contain that particular password. So yeah, we will identify the vulnerabilities in this area, and then depending on the permissions that we hold, we'll be proceeding with the actual exploitation of those vulnerabilities. Now imagine this username and password field is vulnerable to SQL injection. We'll come to that in detail, but for this example, that is vulnerable, and you are able to bypass the authentication and you are able to access the application as some authenticated user. And now imagine with generally with SQL injection, the first record that we get is the admin record. So you are logged in as admin. Now you proceed to look for other areas which you can exploit to escalate further, and you come across a file upload functionality under profile page, and that supports only the image files, but you are able to bypass that. There are some techniques that you can use in that area, and once you are able to bypass that protection, you will be able to upload any kind of code on the server. Now imagine that file upload, you are able to uh, upload a PHP file. Now you can write some code in PHP that actually runs your system commands on the application server. So that way you are escalating your privileges. So in the penetration testing, that is something that we do, and we write the exploit code. Sometimes there are multiple low-hanging fruits or some vulnerabilities that are not directly exploitable. So what you have to do, you have to change some of them and uh, write one exploit script that utilizes all those low level issues, and you are ready with a big bang. You have the exploit that says unauthenticated users are able to uh, completely take over your application server. So that is something that we see in the pen testing area, and then we prepare the reports. In the reporting, we uh, prioritize the findings for companies to fix. There will be like severities, low, medium, high, and critical, and there will be bands given from 1 to 10 based on the severity. So this is the methodology that we follow. I'll introduce you to the OWASP community. OWASP is OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Projects. It's a non-profit charitable organization. They focus on the application security area. They release uh, security testing guide. They release security design documents. They release the test cases that you can follow. Yeah, and arguably it's a place to get you started in application security. Anyone who asks me, they want to learn about hacking, they want to get into the security community, generally I ask them to refer the OWASP websites and see their top 10 uh, top 10 pages. Top 10 they release for all the projects. Like they have top 10 vulnerabilities for web applications, they have top 10 for mobile applications, they have top 10 for IoT devices. So they are doing good on the application security area. The last one was not 13, it was 2021. And see, they basically release this list that says OWASP top 10 web application vulnerabilities, and they release it every 3 to 4 years. Previous one was released in 2017, and these were the vulnerabilities that were part of the OWASP top 10. These are basically uh, vulnerabilities that are exploited in the real world, and from there uh, they'll see the attack vectors, they'll see the exploitability, and they'll see what are the data breaches that utilized these vulnerabilities, and depending on these factors they'll take up this list of OS top 10. And the current list is this: broken access control, they have cryptographic failures, injection attacks were a lot during 2017, but now it has been reduced to some extent, so they moved it to third position. So they'll be doing all this shuffling with the top 10 depending on how the how the real world reacts to the web application vulnerabilities, and what's the vulnerability trend that is there. Before actually diving into the demo, we have to understand some concepts such as authentication and authorization. Authentication is something uh, that verifies uh, whatever user is claiming to be. Now, you are claiming that you are some Mark Zuckerberg, and the application has to verify you if you are the one you are claiming to be. Authorization is more about privileges that you will have on the application. So authentication uh, in simple terms looks like this. You will have client server architecture. You are connected to the internet. The clients you have, suppose you have a browser, you want to connect to some application server, use you have to send in username and password to prove that you are the one you are claiming. Now, suppose you are claiming you are the admin. The application server verifies your password, and then it says, yeah, you are the admin. Take this session ID and keep it with you, because every time you request for some resource, you can't actually send your credentials. So just use these session IDs and we are good to go. So the browser takes the session ID and stores it in the browser itself. You can see here in the application. So you will have cookies here. So somewhere here you will see all the cookies stored. And these are some of the security attributes of cookies. HTTP only, secure, same site, same party. We'll talk about that some other time. For today, I have the demo on SQL injection. SQL injection is a vulnerability uh, which is kind of injection attack, which takes the user input and forwards that to the application, and the application uh, involves that query to the database query. So now imagine you have the code. The code contains this query. Uh, Select name description from products where category is equal to gifts, and then you have the uh, yeah, so this is the actual injection that happens. Let me just quickly show you. Yeah, so select name description from products where category equals to gifts, or this is something where you are expecting the user to give you the category information from the URL. You guys able to follow me here? Is it? Sorry for that. How do I reshare this? Is it good? Okay. All right. So now just consider this query in your code that actually retrieves the name and description columns from products table in your database, and you are categorizing that and using this information from user. And now imagine the application has some drag down field that if you select some area there, you that application triggers this query, right? Now you have the injection here. You are able to uh, put your data here. What, as an attacker, what can you do? If you see this page, you will try to inject another query within that application, and that gets injected here and it becomes a part of the original query. We'll see that in real time. I have one application. Hope you are all able to see my screen. All the tabs you are able to see, right? All right, cool. Yeah, so this is one of the application that is intentionally kept vulnerable. And it's, if you see at the URL, if you look at the URL, you have this parameter, you have this page artist.php, and it accepts one get parameter, and in that you have this value. So you have one, it says this artist is this, and then you click on 2, you have a different artist. Now it is getting some data. These looks to be some artist names and where that could be coming from. So there must be some database involved, and it is trying to fetch this information from the database. So we can imagine there could be some query that is being triggered when you are changing this parameter, and it should be it must be something like this, right? Now let's try to put a single quote character and see how the application behaves. Yeah, you can see that there is an error. Why that error comes? That's because on this area, if you are putting one more single quote, it's gonna produce an error. Sql injection will throw an error that it's not balanced. These should be balanced, right? So it says there is an error in this file. So with this MySQL fetch array, we confirm that there is something wrong with this. Now you understand it's interacting with the database. How can you actually extract the database uh, tables and credentials out of it, right? So the first thing we have to do is see like how many uh, how many columns are there, because what we are gonna do, we are trying to do a union query. As you can see here, if there is a select statement with union, if you are injecting union, you'll be able to put your own query there. And for these two queries to run, these column count should be same. So how we do that, we will try to see. Yeah, there is a technique using order by clause. Order by is something where you are actually trying to sort that database columns. So if you are able to sort by order by 1, that means you are sorting the all the records with the first column. I'll show you here. I have this statements. right? With this order by clause, we are able to sort by column number 1. Now if we try to sort by some other column number, suppose order by 2, we are saying that sort the uh, data by the second column. Then we say third column and then fourth column to see if it is able to do that. Third and then fourth. The fourth one again gives us this error. So that means there are only 3 columns. Now we should be able to do the union. Union select 1, 2, 3. We're doing this. Right? We are able to fetch we are able to inject this query as well as we are getting rid of the error. Now to read the data from these columns, all we have to do is just I'm putting this -1 here. I'll tell you why. If you go to this slide again, when we are injecting, there are 2 queries select statements that are gonna run, and when we give that -1 on this artist parameter, it runs this first statement and see there are no -1 IDs for any of the records. So it goes back to the second statement, select whatever we are giving. Here we were just only giving 1, 2, and 3. So these are the 2 places where it is displaying that information. So you are able to inject that and you are able to run the you are able to see the data from this query statement that you are running. Now 2 or 3 are the attack vectors for us. Now I am just running the database command here. With this database method, I am able to see the database name. We can run any command now here. It's interacting with the database and getting us the results on this UI page, web page. You want to see the version of the database, just run this version method and here you see the results you are able to see. Now this is not our intention. We'll try to see to what extent this can be exploited. For that I'm just gonna use a command method called group concat, which I'll be putting all of my commands. Now within the group concat I'm giving the version method. And I'm getting the same result. Why I'm giving this is because whatever next steps I'm gonna do, it involves multiple complex queries. That way, in that this group concat will help us. Yeah, so this query, if you see, hope it's still visible to you all. This is a query that I'm gonna inject. It says union select. There are 3 columns, 1, 2, and 3. Right? So in the second column or third column, you can inject this table name because you are going to enumerate the table names now. I'll just replace that from 2 to 3. Right? We have 1, 2, and then 3. The previous command was this union select 1, 2, 3. Now in that third column, we are injecting table name with group concat. And then at the end, we are just attaching some more clauses that says from information schema. It's a metadata table that contains all the table information. And from that information schema, we are trying to extract the tables. And we are saying that where table schema is database. So database command is this. Once we run this database command, it gives back the database name. So in the query, this is gonna be placed. Table schema is database, and then no need of this limit. Now you run this here, you'll be able to see all the tables. These are the tables that are there in that particular database. Cool, you are able to see. Thanks. Right, so you have these many tables, and if I were you, I'll definitely go with this users table and see what information it contains. So the next step I'll do, I know the tables. Now it's time to see the columns, and in the columns, I'm only interested in, yeah, with this limit, actually, you'll be able to go through each and every one, each and every table name. So here I'm directly using the group concat. So you are seeing all of these tables in one place. If you do not use the group concat, what it does, it only shows you the artist, and then next time you need to use the limit, and then you'll be able to see the next tables. So the limit is used for that. Now we know the tables. It's time to know the columns that it contains within the table. Yeah, this command. So with this, what we are going to do, union select, and then I'm just gonna use the column name in the, not in second, I'll use it in the third column, 1 2, and the third one is group concat column name. I need the columns under any of those tables, so I can just specify what table name I'm interested in. So here I'm saying group concat column name, and I'm again saying take this information from the information schema. It's a metadata table that contains all the information about tables and columns within the database. And here I'm giving a where clause that says I am only interested in the users table. Get me the column names for users table. Let's put that here. So within the user table, these are the columns that are available. Now, what are the columns that are most interesting or we are more interested in? So all we have to do now is just do this union select 1 comma 2 comma, and then do the group concat. In the group concat, I'll simply paste all of these columns, or whatever I'm interested in, I can put it there. So in the group concat, we are doing this. We are putting the column names. Now it's time to get the data. We know the tables. First we went to look for the database, and then we tried attaching our query to the database through union query, and then we got the table names from the information schema metadata, and then we got the column names from the information schema, and then we need the data from these columns. So for data, we will simply do this group concat on columns, and then we simply say from users. Now we know the table name. Earlier, when we were not aware of the table name, we relied on information schema, because that's a technique. If we use, we'll be able to see the list of tables. Now we know the table name, so we'll directly use that and say that get the data of these columns from this table name. Once we run this, error. Let's see names first. This error. Union select group concat from